But you're right. I think if you're new and you're trying to find that consistency, just try and be disciplined to trade one thing and do that for a couple months, right? That'll allow you to build that intuition that you really need in the market, and it'll allow you to stay out of the trades that really just suck and you just feel like trading that day, right? Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Pulling Profits podcast. Today, we have a special guest. This is somebody that I discovered through Instagram. She has a faith-based trading community, and she kills it on Nas 100, day in, day out, week by week. That's her bread and butter. Without further ado, everybody, this is Mercy Trades. Welcome, Mercy.
Everybody, thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, of course. It was my pleasure to reach out to you. I know we have a lot in common, right? We both parents in this trading game. You know the struggles of being a parent in the trading game while you're learning and while you're trying to become profitable, right? I do know you have a pretty tight-knit community, and I wanted to ask you a couple questions about that, okay? So I want the audience to get to know you a little bit. So with our first question, how did you get your feet wet in the trading space, and who were some of your early mentors and teachers?
Okay, so I started with IML, which I'm pretty sure most people started with. Then, like, my trading journey, getting my feet wet was crazy. So I went to IML, then I left and I joined this community called B. These are all network marketing companies. I thought I needed to join a network marketing company to learn how to trade because I was new. I had no idea, like, what needed to be done. So I joined B, I joined Tradera, I joined Epic. I took all these courses in these network marketing companies. Finally, I was like they wanted to get me to sign people up. I was like, well, how can I sign people up if I don't know what I'm doing? That doesn't make sense. Like, so eventually I branched out on YouTube and I found Swaggy C.
Oh, yes.
Who I later ended up working for, which is crazy. But yeah, so I found him on YouTube, studied him a lot on YouTube, and then my birthday came around. I want to say like my 20th birthday, and I like begged my dad to go half with me on his course. Once I got his course, I studied it for a few months. I was here and there profitable, like very small profits. Then I found ICT on YouTube, and once I found ICT on YouTube, simplified some of the things that he talked about, it was a wrap from there. And then of course, narrowing down what I trade to Nas 100 only.
Okay, sweet. So you started with Swaggy C. That's also a course I took as well. Swaggy was, an inspiration. He's huge. He's one of the pioneers in the trading game. He definitely left his footprint for sure. When you studied ICT, did you find it hard to digest at first, or was there a lot of understanding right off the bat?
Understanding right off the bat, it was like, oh, this is for me. Like, I didn't have to. It was easy. Like, it really came easy, especially order block entries. Like, it came so easy.
Okay. Yeah, order block entries. Yeah, those are usually the easiest to get a hold of at the beginning. I do know ICT goes, like, there's so many setups ICT talks about, but yeah, order blocks are definitely textbook. I like those as well. So how did you end up deciding on Nas 100? Because I know there's a bunch of indices that kind of move similarly.
So at first, obviously, like when you first start trading, I wasn't with indices. I was doing like GA. I was really trying to do anything that Swaggy was trading. That was what I was at first doing. Then I migrated to indices. I would trade them all three: US 30, SPX 500, Nas 100, and I even did JUR 30. I would trade them all together, and then I kind of slowly started subtracting some from my trade list, I guess you can say. I chose Nas 100 because I just realized that out of all of them, I had the most success there.
Okay, so you found the most consistency.
Yeah, so even though they sometimes tend to move the same, when it came to respecting the order blocks, not wicking me out, which US 30 would do so much, I found the most consistency with Nas 100.
Okay, cool. Honestly, man, like with my experience with indices, I was more towards US 30, but I get what you mean. There's definitely like weeks where one indice is moving dumb clean compared to the other ones, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all is personal preference for sure. I'm glad you
Yeah.
found consistency though.
Right, because you can honestly, if you want to, like you just said, sometimes one week one's moving better than the other. So you can necessarily switch off if you wanted. But like you said, it all comes down to personal preference. And I think that's something people need to really understand. Trading is personal preference.
You couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. They're asking like what you do specifically, and what you do is what you do, right? You got to figure out what works for yourself. You can only follow the blueprint so much, right? So moving forward, I want to ask, how would you describe your trading style?
So I guess what they call smart money concepts.
Hmm.
So I pretty much like the confluences I use are order blocks, sell and buy stop liquidity, failed swings, and imbalance. So I keep it pretty simple. I found keeping it simple has made trading super sweet for me.
Right. That's 100% true. A lot of
Yeah.
people overcomplicate things, and anybody coming from an ICT background, you're either completely overwhelmed or you simplify it to a point where it works for you, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. I like to hear that. People tend to know very little about trading. They assume that it's risky, right? How do you manage your risk in the markets?
Good question. I accept the risk before I enter the markets. So based on the lot size and my stop loss size, I already know what I could potentially lose or make. So with knowing that and going in with that, it helps me accept the risk, and that's how I manage them.
Right. So do you use like a calculator, or do you just know how Nas moves based on the pip count?
Yeah, I know how Nas moves. Since I only trade one pair, it's kind of like, okay, 50-point stop loss, cool. Like, and I know with my trading plan, I won't use any bigger than a 50-point stop loss.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So would you say you're trading more off of like the 15-minute time frame or 5 minute?
So obviously I scale down, start on the daily, get the overall trend, but my entry time frames are the 30 or the 15-minute, whichever one looks the best for the day.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I remember trying to learn how the pip count works with indices. It was a little confusing. It did take some trial and error. I know there are some calculators like Baby Pips or Stinu that you can use, but they don't actually offer the indices as like an option to calculate lot sizes.
Right.
So yeah, you do have to do some trial and error, but it's good that you do know in your trading plan how it moves, right? That's important.
Right. And once you get used to it, it's pretty easy because I hate math. People always say, "Oh, you have to be good at math." Like, I hate math. So if I can get it, anybody can get it.
You heard it here first, guys. A profitable trader telling you she hates math. Like, you don't need to be a genius to learn how to trade, right? It's very simple.
And I use percentages even like I weigh my wins and losses by percentages. So even though I hate math, I do use percentages, but I keep it so simple where it's not like information overload.
That's important.
Yeah.
So what was one of the first things you recall trading allowing you to purchase? So everyone has like their first big withdrawal after a while, whether it's 2 years, 3 years. What were one of the first things you remember buying that you were like, damn, this is real?
So small or big?
It doesn't matter. Memorable.
Okay, because the first thing, I bought some wings. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I went, if you know me, like, I love wings, right? So in California, it was Wingstop because that's where I'm from. But in
Yeah.
Texas, I would never step foot in Wingstop because there's so many better places. But Wingstop, I remember I withdrew, I filled up my gas tank, and I bought some Wingstop. And those wings felt so good to eat because I made that money from my bed. Like,
Yeah.
so that's the first thing I remember. Gas and some wings.
Gas and some wings. I can't get mad at it, man. For me, I think it was like around 2020 when they were giving out that COVID relief money. I remember flipping one of the relief money deposits that I got, and my first purchase for real was this little iPad right here. This was my first purchase. Yeah, no, it's such a good feeling. That first thing you can buy, it doesn't matter if it's food, like you're like, damn, I really bought something by pressing a button in the markets, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I tell people to start small, like wings and gas may be like, oh, whatever, but you have to realize that not everybody is able to buy food, fill up their gas tank by making money from their phone. So
Right.
it was the small, being grateful for the small things helps you appreciate the bigger things.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's huge. Yeah, yeah. People try to aim for the stars in the beginning, and it's like, you know, if you can just start small, take small steps, right? It's super important. That's the best mindset to have. What do you think were some factors that allowed you to become more consistent? Not everyone starts consistent. It has to be like something you build up to. So, what were some
Right.
factors that allowed you to get to that point?
Narrowing down to only trading one thing, which was NOS 100. I feel like for me personally, I know some people they can focus on like multiple pairs, but for me, once I got rid of everything and only focused on one thing, that's when it really took off for me. When I became extra strict in my trading plan and understood without risk management, I'm not going anywhere with this trading thing, that's when it took off. So I would say those two factors for sure, because like I said, with NOS 100, I don't use any more than a 50-point stop loss. So with having that strict rule and only trading that one thing, I saw my consistency kind of like skyrocket.
Okay, nice. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people, they don't have sorry, not consistency. They don't have the discipline to stick to one thing.
Yeah,
Even myself, I have trouble sticking to one thing. I try to just trade gold, but I find myself, you know, venturing off into GJ sometimes or EU, things that I'm familiar
yeah,
with. But you're right. I think if you're new and you're trying to find that consistency, just try and be disciplined to trade one thing and do that for a couple months, right? That'll allow you to build that intuition that you really need in the market, and it'll allow you to stay out of the trades that really just suck and you just feel like trading that day, right?
exactly. And I call it like become best friends with a pair. It's hard to be best friends with 10 different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting, you know what I mean? Like knowing everything about them, knowing the ins and outs. But if you're best friends with one pair or one person, for, just using an example, it's easier to get to know them, to know what's going to happen if this occurs, or if you see this, it might react like this. So that I always say become best friends with your pair.
That's the best advice you could give someone, especially
Yeah.
someone new. A lot of people don't, they underestimate the power of intuition. That is a huge part of trading, and you can't teach it, right? You gotta
Yeah.
just take L's until you understand.
Experience.
So, as a father of three, I know exactly where you're coming from, but briefly explain to the audience what it's like learning how to trade and becoming consistent while being a parent with a business.
Okay, yeah, that's hard. Not gonna lie. I mean, we can make it look easy, right? But there are times when the unexpected always happens with kids. I would say just creating a schedule for them makes it easier. Um, and creating a schedule for yourself. Have a daily to do list, and you don't use their nap time to nap. Use their nap time to study, right? Because you can't, excuses are only going to hurt you. So if you make the excuse like, oh, I have kids, I have this, they have that, then you're never going to make it. So the best advice I can give parents learning is to schedule the time in
Mm-hmm.
and use every bit of free time. Get rid of Netflix. Okay, use every bit of free time to master the market. Then once you master it, you could go back to your Netflix. But until then, use that free time for good. Like when my kids nap, I usually don't nap, right? I
Mm-hmm.
usually am working on my business, I'm studying, right? I'm getting things done. So I would just say use your time wisely and schedule those slots in to study.
When you were like just starting to learn how to trade, were you a mother then?
When I first started learning to trade, it was the end of 2019, and my son was born in the end of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, just when my son was born, I had just reached like, well, not just, but like that year was when I was officially like profitable, right? I passed my first challenge. I want to say 2 days before my first son was born.
Wow.
Yeah. I know, and I needed it too. Like I had just moved to Texas. I didn't have a job. So I really needed to pass that challenge, right?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. Holy crap. Are there any hurdles you had to overcome when you were first starting your own brand, feeling responsible for, other people's success that joined your community?
Good question. Yeah, so when I started Have Mercy Trades, I started it at the beginning of this year in January. And I think one of the biggest hurdles was like overcoming perfection. Like, I'm a human too.
Mhm.
And I felt like sometimes I felt like I had to be perfect because I know these other people, they're taking my signals, they're watching my educational calls. So when you're running a business, especially trading, that leaves you like very little room to make big error, right? It has to be small error. But I had to realize that I'm not perfect. I'm only human. All I can do is manage my risk. If I manage my risk, I teach them to manage their risk. And if you're managing your risk with the high win rate, it's only up, right?
Mhm.
There's always going to be losses, but with that high win rate and managed risk, you're bound to be profitable at the end. So I guess the hurdle was overcoming perfection because I would put that weight on my shoulders of like, dang, I hit stop loss today. Like all these people hit stop loss, but it was only a 30-point stop loss. So is it really that, you know, much to be down about? I had to get over. I'm not going to be perfect.
Perfection, right? You got to get over that hurdle for sure. That's
Yeah.
definitely hard when you're responsible for a bunch of people that join your community. I have like a similar feeling, like I had to overcome that a little bit too. I did
Mhm.
start a signal service and I decided to close it because I just I didn't see the value in it long term. It was more stress on my shoulders. I'd
Right.
rather, I would rather share some of my setups here and there in my community, help out with psychology, answer any questions, do webinars. That's more what I prefer. But I hear
Okay.
you when it comes to that feeling because, like, being responsible for others is huge. Like, you just feel bad
Yeah.
when your stuff hits stop loss.
But like I teach them to manage the risk so they know the rules. So I think that's helped the most. And really just stressing like, hey, losses are normal. Like even though I'm profitable, you guys see I still take losses.
Yeah, we're all human, right? Like, no
Exactly.
strategy is gonna have 100% hit rate. And if you're
Exactly.
above 50%, that's a very high win rate for your strategy, right?
Yeah, I think the strategy is like I want to say like 80% or
Oh,
something around there. Yeah, so it's a pretty good win rate, okay?
that's nice. That's really good. And I know it because you post your trades every single day. You be killing Nas 100. So
Yeah, I try to show the transparency in the post like, hey, stop loss was hit, but we came back. Yeah, the consistency's there for sure.
awesome. If you had to choose one or the other, would you rather trade funded capital or personal capital?
I like personal capital because I can withdraw anytime.
I'm with you on that one.
A long break from my funded account because I was like, I could trade live, like, like withdraw daily if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just about to start getting back on this funded route. I'm taking a challenge to show the people in my community how to maneuver through a challenge. So that's why, but definitely personal.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I also secured funded accounts and you keep them for so long. You can't keep that account forever. It's going to go at some point. To be able to withdraw whenever you want, to be able to deposit whenever you want, to be able to compound your account, there's a lot more freedom with personal capital. And one thing I noticed is the commissions on funded capital are absolutely bananas. Like, if you take more than 3 trades a day, the commissions start to add up, especially if you trade one pair. That's super important if you're going to go the funded route. I tell everyone all the time, like, find a pair, become best friends with it, like you said, and that's going to be your ticket to getting a funded account. Don't try and trade 5 different things because it's going to be
Right.
very, very difficult.
Yeah, and don't rush you can't rush the process with funded accounts. That's why I've been kind of looking for um, prompt firms that don't have a time limit
Mm.
to take that stress off. Because people be like, oh my gosh, I have to pass in 30 days. Or some people, they want it now, but it doesn't work like that.
You can have like a super crazy killer week, right? And pass whatever your phase one. But the following week is not promised. Like, you can have a really good week and then a really bad week. So for me personally, I find if I'm gonna trade money, I want to see the results of my trades over a span of time. I want to see that money grow. I don't want to pay a deposit to pass one phase to not make any money, even though I had a good week, and then lose that money that I invested on phase 2 of the account. So it's just
Right.
personal preference at the end of the day. Funded route is definitely a great opportunity for people that are already profitable, but it's also your appetite for risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to. That's when percentages comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go by percentage, not dollar amount. And you have to be very mindful of how much you're losing when you do lose. I predefine it before I even get in the market. That's
Mm-hmm.
what helps me the most. But that, I mean, I think it's good for beginning traders as well, just because it teaches them to be very strict in their risk management.
You know what? I agree with you on that. Because when I first started, I did do the FTMO trial. They have like a free trial, right?
Right.
Yo, that right there, it took my risk management to another level. That was the reason I
Yeah.
became cognizant about my risk.
It makes you keep the risk tight.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Why do you think 90% of traders fail?
What we just talked about, the risk management.
Mm,
Risk management, and because they quit. You can only fail if you quit.
I
Like,
agree.
failure really doesn't exist unless you're like, I'm done, right? So I feel like they just quit. I've blown countless accounts when I first started trading, but guess what? I never failed because I didn't quit. So
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
don't want to fail, don't quit.
I agree. You can take like, $100 account, blow it. That money's in the market. It's not in your account, it's in the market. So
Yeah.
as soon as you quit, that money stays in the market. You're not getting it back. So I agree with what you said. You only quit once you fail. So me personally, I had it's on my YouTube. You guys can go watch it. I had blown $11,000 of my mom's inheritance on
Oh
trading.
my goodness.
About 30% of it was little accounts blown. The rest was all like education, right? So back to what you said, it's only a failure once you quit. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I like that. Why don't you walk me through one of your lowest points in your trading and what you learned from it?
Oh yeah, I keep replaying something in my head. Um, so I remember I was in my bed. I was probably a year into trading. I was up for the first time. I was up like I saw like I was in like 4 different trades. I think it was I was in Bitcoin in the forex market though. And I was up. I was so happy. I was like, I'm gonna let it ride. Next thing I know, it comes all the way back down, blows the whole account. All the money's gone. Like, I remember I was crying. And I don't know if I have the picture, but I took a picture of myself crying and I was like, you're gonna remember this.
Oh no.
I literally took a picture of myself crying because I was like, you know, years from now, I'm gonna remember this. Like, hey, you didn't quit, even though you're in your bed at 2 in the morning crying
Yeah.
because you just had. I had the profits right there. All I had to do was close, and I didn't close. And I didn't even know what stop loss at break even was. I didn't know what taking partials was, so I didn't do any of that.
That's that IML training, guys.
Man, literally. Yeah, I think I was on a team at this point, I'm not even gonna lie. But I was trading by myself, and I'll never forget. As soon as that my account got blown, we just started crying. And I was like, is this even for me? And then I'm still crying, and I'm like, I'm gonna take a picture so I can remember this.
Well, you're documenting the journey, right? You're documenting the lows
Right.
and the highs, which is full transparency. That's what your community is all about. And that's why you're
Exactly.
successful at this point. So I'm laughing, but I know where you're coming from. You know what I mean? Like um, we all have had those low points when it comes to trading, and I know there's no shame in documenting it at least. So, you know,
Exactly.
well, thank you for sharing that. I know how much that hurts. I know the pain. We all have
Yeah.
those memories.
As soon as you said it, like that whole like moment just played in my head.
Yeah, some trauma came back up.
No, for real.
This is going to be the traditional final question of the Pulling Profits podcast, and we always have to save the best for last.
Right.
So, because we just said that, why don't you walk me through the best trade that stands out in your memory that you can recall?
So there's two. So the first one it was a few days before I think my 22nd birthday. I really wanted to go to Florida, so I put like $200 in, and within like 4 days I have flipped it to like 1,500 or so. was able to like buy my ticket. I was able to go. Like I went quick, right? So that was like a day that stood out to me because that's probably one of the first big things that I was able to do. Travel and trade. Who doesn't want to do that? And then the second one is when I was working at one of my jobs. I worked at Polo Ralph Lauren. I remember I entered a trade before my shift started, and a few hours in, my trade was at like $3,000. I was like, y'all, I'm about to walk out. Like,
I don't need this job.
right? I was walking around feeling real good because I was like, I don't have to be here, but I am. Like,
That's awesome. Oh
so
man.
those were the two trades that I would say stood out to me because they were being able to buy a plane ticket, and all that good stuff. And then being at a 9 to 5 and making more than you actually make in a week at that 9 to 5, I would say that's why those stood out to me because those are like the beginning points.
That's awesome. I'm glad you shared that. Everyone has their ups and downs, but usually the downs hurt more than the ups. But that's good that you were able to do that. Did you trade news or was it just like non-news days?
For the 3,000.
Yeah, like both times you did those flips, were you like catching some like FOMC, NFP, CPI?
I know it's in my highlights, but I don't know if I can find it now. But I know that it was news for the 3,000 trade for sure because it was like afternoon when I was at work.
Okay.
I have a screenshot of it somewhere. I'll have to find it. I can't. Dang, I'm gonna find it after because I want to know what the lot size was. But I just remember looking like, oh my goodness, I was in the break room like y'all would not believe it. They didn't understand a thing I was saying. They didn't.
Oh, no one understands. They don't understand.
Nobody gets it until I put my 2 weeks in. Like, hey, I'm quitting. They're like, oh, where are you going? I'm like, full-time day trader.
Gotta give props to it. That's
Right.
mad respectable, and I'm super happy that happened for you.
Yeah, it was a moment, definitely.
Awesome. Well, guys, this wraps up our first episode of the Pulling Profits podcast. Mercedith, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. We appreciate the transparency as well, the ups and the downs. If any of you are looking to find her on Instagram and find some of her content, I'm going to drop it in the link below in the description. With that being said, everybody, thank you for watching till the end. We'll see you in the next one.